So in this short video, I just wanted to briefly touch on meeting the emotional needs of your spouse or partner. Now, this is specifically directed to the newlyweds out there or newer couples, but really I think this is something that's applicable to any couple. So first, let's talk about what are emotional needs. So emotional needs are more than just like the logistical needs that you might have in a relationship. Logistical needs such as like having food to eat, making sure that like the house chores and stuff are taken care of. Uh, those kind of like basic maintenance things, if you will. Emotional needs, on the other hand, are usually core and fundamental to the relationship that you're in and the sense of safety and connectedness that you have with your spouse or partner. And so I like to share a silly analogy, but I think it's helpful when understanding emotional needs. So growing up, for Christmas especially, one tradition that my family has is we would always get Lucky Charms to be able to eat basically all day, which was a special treat because it wasn't just for like breakfast or something, right? I mean, it's practically a dessert anyways with how much sugar that's in it, right? But anyway, so imagine with me this box of Lucky Charms, right? And usually they always had this picture of this pot of gold. Well, actually, the gold was replaced with Lucky Charms and a rainbow leading to that pot of gold. So when it comes to emotional needs, we all have this pot of gold or this bowl of Lucky Charms, if you will, and that represents your core emotional needs. These are very basic and fundamental to every relationship. They include things like to feel loved, to feel connected, to feel like a good person, to feel like you're enough, to feel like you can do, like a competent individual, things like this. Most people that I work with, like I said, really only have maybe 1 to 3 core needs that they have. But we often have many ways in which we might feel like that core need is met by our partner or spouse. So, for example, let's say a core need of mine, a core emotional need, I should say, is to feel connected to my spouse. Well, there are many ways in which I particularly feel connected to my spouse. For me, quality time and touch are really important. And so in my mind, there's like nothing better than being able to go on a walk or a hike and hold my wife's hand and just talk, right? Not necessarily about anything in particular, but just be together. Kind of hits two birds with one stone for me for that. But see, that's just one way in which I feel that core need is being met. Just like there are many rainbows that may potentially lead to this pot of gold, there are many ways in which you might feel connected to your spouse as well. And so that's what these emotional needs are, right? Just these very core fundamental things. Now, but why are they important? And why am I bothering even making this video about these emotional needs? Well, you see, if emotional needs are not met in a relationship, the relationship will become stale and eventually shrivel and die. Now, I know that may sound dramatic, but the truth of the matter is that the research shows us that relationships can't survive without emotional connection. And so emotions are essential to having a healthy relationship. And so if these things are neglected or if they're threatened even, which is even worse, then the relationship, like I said, will eventually just deteriorate because these core fundamental needs are not being met. So how do you meet the emotional needs of your spouse? The first thing is to talk about what those needs might be. You can start with very basic things that are more geared towards the rainbow in my analogy that I shared with you earlier, such as like reading the 5 love languages book and figuring out like which love language most resonates with you. You might also think about, hey, in the past, what kind of things have we done that helped me feel the most loved or the most close to you, those kinds of things. And that gets you down the track of figuring out, what kind of things your spouse can do to help you with this. But remember that you need to also know what the pot of gold is, right? So a good question to ask yourself for that is, okay, if this thing is met, what does that do for me? So if my partner does service for me, so what? How does that make me feel? And that will probably tell you a little bit more about what your core emotional needs are, or what your core emotional need is, if it's just kind of one main thing. So communicate those things, identify them and communicate them. And then once you do that, strive to meet them in small and simple ways. Relationships often get overcomplicated. Being able to dedicate a little bit of time here and there can make a big difference. And so, one silly thing that I like to recommend sometimes that I'll do for myself is, write some of these things down on a sticky note of things that you can do to help your spouse or partner feel like their core emotional needs are being met. And then stick them on your bathroom mirror, somewhere where you'll see them often, and strive to meet them. So, again, I hope this review of emotional needs as it relates to relationships has been helpful for you. I would challenge you again to think about what are your emotional needs and what are the emotional needs of your partner, and strive to do little things here and there to meet them in meaningful ways so that you can continue to feel more connected to your partner or spouse.